Public Safety and Public Works Committee meeting for January 12th, 2021. The purpose of the committee meetings are for the city departments to pass along information to the city council and discuss initiatives listed on the published agenda. Our ordinance committee consists of the mayor, members of the city council, and the city administrator. The ordinance mandates the city administrator as chair of the meetings. This is a public meeting, but not a public hearing. Therefore, while the meeting is open to the public, we do not take public comments or questions during the committee meetings. Public comments or questions are received at the regular city council meetings held at 7 p.m. in the city council chambers or virtually on the second and fourth Monday of each month. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes of the Administration, Finance, Recreation, and Parks Committee meeting for December 15th, 2020. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Councilmember Judy. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wilsey. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you. First item under administration, discussion and consideration to solicit proposals for lobbying services. That is my item, and in your packets, you should have found a memo from my office requesting authorization to solicit lobbying services for qualified firms to represent the city at this next legislative session, and then thereon after as we deem fit. But the primary role of this firm would be to represent us at the Capitol with any other organizations or agencies you guys deem appropriate. With everything going on right now, with our current operating or current political environment, with what's happening nationally, anticipating some of the legislation that may come through this year at the state level, I think it's in our best interest for us to have a seat at that table. And talking to some people that do business down at the Capitol, Bob, you may know better than I do on this, but I believe the rules this year with COVID is they're going to keep the Capitol basically on lockdown, from what I understand. So that means the legislators, their staff, and certain other people are going to be allowed in the Capitol, but everybody else is not going to be allowed in there. So that's going to restrict our access even more than we already are right now. I just think it's in our best interest to have somebody down there at the Capitol representing us, representing your interests, the city's interests. And this is me asking for your authorization and, of course, input on this whole process. So with that, I'll answer any questions you guys have, and welcome to discussion. Councilmember Judy.
Gary, do other cities and municipalities have lobbyists down at the Capitol, and roles and responsibilities would be based upon direction of the council as a whole? In what way? Upon our strategic plan, or based upon just more finding information for us on possible things such as 5G placement, or the things we looked at as far as the home building things last year, taking stuff away from power away from local governments, and then coming back to us and saying, here's what's coming up. You all need to take a strong look and tell me what position you take on this. Is that how this would work?
I'll answer the first part. So Alpharetta does have, they retain a lobbying firm. They've had it for about a year. I was talking to Regis about it today. Sandy Springs, they don't. I think Mayor Paul is pretty tied in down there, so they don't.
He's a lobbyist.
So they don't have the need in Sandy Springs. Johns Creek does not. They're considering, and Milton, I don't believe, has it. I haven't heard that from Steve Prokoff yet on that, so I'm not sure about Milton. But yeah, if you look in the packet, I attach a sample scope of work in there and just kind of itemize some of the things that would be expected of this firm. And primarily, if we wind up soliciting and hiring a firm, the first step, I believe, would be to get with the mayor, talk about those roles and responsibilities, how that what interaction this firm is going to have with the city council as a whole. But yes, as a function, they will represent us and the city government's interest to the Capitol during the legislative session. And then out of session, they would work with us on whatever initiatives we want to push through, whatever bills that we think we need to have, input on, and will also keep us apprised on, all the things that are happening with the state and at a national level. My expectation would be for them to give us briefings on trends that are happening both at a state and national level. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much going to be representing us at the state capitol. And then if there's other things that we would want this firm to do, if we get involved in other, interactions with other agencies and we want this firm to represent us there, nationally, we can talk about that. But for the most part, this would be starting off primarily focusing on this next legislative session. And if you guys decide you want to continue after that, then we can move forward with that. Councilor Woolsey.
Yes, thank you, Gary, and thanks for bringing this forward. Just a couple of questions. Would this be, I imagine it's on a retainer basis over a period of several months when the legislature is in session, and is there also opportunity to, I guess, ramp up depending on what the activity might be? And then my other question is, would you anticipate that we would have a representative assigned to the city exclusively, or would they also be representing other cities as well?
There's, I'll answer that last part first. I do not think we should look at any firm that's representing any other city. I think we need to get a firm that's going to represent the city of Roswell and the city of Roswell's interests. When I first got here, I had talked to some of our other sister cities about the possibility, and we just discussed about, partnering on this to represent North Fulton interests. And then we, as we got into that a little bit more, we all agreed that it would be better if we just had our own representation down there. So that kind of died a long time ago. And I didn't, what was the first part of your question? If we would yes, they would represent us solely. That would be my recommendation. I don't have any proposals right now, but we would write that request for proposals with that in mind, that we would want them to represent us and not represent other municipalities. And I don't remember the first part of your question.
Yeah, well, the first part was just how it's done. If it's done on a retainer basis,
Yeah, it would be on a retainer.
And could it be ramped up or back depending on what the activities actually might be during the term?
The few firms that I've talked to, yes, we can scale, but it is typically done on a retainer basis. And I have a revised projection on how much that would be. The range would be $60,000 to $100,000. So we're the ones that I've talked to, they typically charge about $5,000 a month for retainer during the legislative session.
All right, thank you.
Mayor?
I would like to state from my experience over the last 20 years, we have entertained and have hired consultants. And there's always a risk because you are hiring someone that you don't know what they're going to deliver. However, I would also like to say, if you don't hire that person, you don't know what revenues might come your way that don't anymore. And in these very, very uncertain times in the federal government, state government is kind of up and down. And here's my key thing, because we are under attack for home rule. We are under attack for local zoning. And if there's nothing else we do, we need to protect that, because local zoning is key. You all know, or you should know, that the reason why we have annexed a great portion of Fulton County into the city of Roswell is because they wanted local zoning. They didn't want county zoning. And there has been a shift for county, state, federal zoning issues that would take home rule away from us. So if there's nothing else that we need to protect for our citizens, that's it. Then I can also pile on things like COVID, CARES Act money, all of those things that come with that. So for me, personally, I feel that it is very important that we need to protect our interests, because we don't want to be asleep at the wheel. We don't want to let our citizens down, and So going forward, I just want to make sure that we have the best representation that we can have at the state level, and then in addition, the federal level, because we're coming under attack. Make no mistake about it. This is just a trend. It was going on before this election. So it's not about this election. It's about what's been going on for the last year.
Thank you. Any other questions? What is the pleasure, Councilman Plermont?
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. So certainly I agree with a lot of city needs as Mayor Henry and as Councilman Judy had brought up. And those are universal to different cities and municipalities. And so I got to tell you, I see this request as just really another really irresponsible use of taxpayer money. And I see it as irresponsible for three reasons. Number one, we actually have multiple elected representatives that will be at the legislature this year. We have one state senator who has committee lead roles and it has an active role there, and we have multiple elected House representatives. What I think we should do is if we feel this is important, which I think we actually all do, if we feel it's important that the state laws that are being enacted are beneficial to the cities and to the city of Roswell, then let's come together as a council and let's get more active and proactive on the resolutions we sent. Like one of the ones that brought up was the building code item, or something around zoning. I forget what it might be. It was something we did send a resolution, a signed resolution to, and it was something that did not pass that session. Let's get even more so than that. Let's get more focused on that. Let's invite our elected officials to a committee meeting when needed. Let's have stronger resolutions, and frankly, let's advertise to the city of Roswell when we feel there is something that is voted upon that's negatively impacting Roswell. So that's number one for me. Number two is the fact that I disagree with the city administrator's thought process that we should have a lobbying firm that's only going to represent Roswell, because we don't want the interference or conflicts of interest with another city. And here's why. If there was going to be a state bill that was voting on should Roswell get this much money or should Alpharetta or something along those lines, then I think there's the argument that if our elected officials aren't going to make sure that Roswell's named in there, then there could be benefit for the lobbyists. But realistically, what I see really the need here is things like the exact things that Mayor Henry brought up and the exact things that Councilman Judy brought up, which are home rule, which is zoning freedoms, which is COVID money, different aspects like that. Those are things that 5G, Councilman Judy brought up. These are all things that are really important. Let's make sure that we're holding our elected officials accountable. And if we feel there's a need, then you know what? First of all, GMA does have a lobbying arm. So let's look at leveraging them a little more, or pushing them to really do more from a lobbying standpoint. And if they're not doing that, then I think we get to the point of the next step. If we feel step 1 and 2 fails, then we look at going in with as many cities as possible to go in with lobbyists to really fight for the cities. And then lastly, it comes down to, I've stated the fact that for free we have our elected representatives. To hear that potentially $75,000 to $150,000 for a lobbyist down there, when it's a common good for all cities, we're not going to get something special for Roswell. No matter if we get the best lobbyists in the world, they're not going to put some great item that's just specific to Roswell. So this really is going to be something for it's multiple cities, it's for region, whatever it might be. And so that's where I see such better uses of this. For example, economic development. In Roswell, we need economic development. We need redevelopment in our city, in our blighted areas. And someone here could argue, well, maybe a lobbyist could help increase the opportunity zone or something along those lines. There are things that can be done at the State House. Let's hold our elected officials that represent us down there to be accountable for that. That's number one. And then number two, frankly, a direct way we can do it. We've talked about Alpharetta has a lobbyist like this. Milton does not. Well, Alpharetta and Milton both do invest in-house on economic development. So let's talk about the money there. We can get into, of course, many other things with the budget that we really need it for, increasing or really fixing the compensation issue among our police department, helping our really have some risk aversion on our fire department of actually getting some full-time captains that can actually fight fires and be full-time to Roswell. And I could go on and on and on. So at the end of the day, this is something I certainly do not support today. I think it's irresponsible. I'm certainly open, and I actually encourage that we will take this seriously, though. We will focus on having a voice at the state, and the way we do that is through our elected senator and multiple state representatives.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Councilmember Palermo, the things that you spoke on topic, I completely disagree with you on, completely. Now, you delved into other areas that you were opining on, and that's our city administrator's call as far as you staying on topic or not. But let me say this. I feel that it is very, very important for us to represent our interests when I'm not sure who you're representing and who you consider the people that are going to focus on the city of Roswell as our elected officials. I certainly will call on them. I certainly will call on my fellow mayors. I certainly will call on my fellow council members. But I can tell you this much right now, having had numerous conversations with fellow mayors in Fulton County and in North Fulton, our interests are not the same. They are very different based on our economy. They are very different based on our financial needs or financial balance. And to say that one lobbyist will protect all of the cities of North Fulton is a false statement. I think you are misguided. And I will say this, if you choose not to hire a lobbyist, I will lay that at your doorstep. I personally feel that it is a good move to protect our citizens' taxpayer dollars. Keep in mind, the city of Roswell's political climate has changed. It has changed in this last election. It changed in the election before that. So when we are looking to hold our state representatives, our congresspeople in Washington accountable, we're talking a whole different ballgame. And I don't think, while you might think that you are a political Spengali, I don't think that I am. And I personally think that we need someone that is going to watch out for our interests. That is their personal or their contractual obligation to make sure that they watch out for our interests, to keep us apprised, to let us know when there are shifts, let us know when the political winds are prevailing in one direction or the other. You might think that you're capable of doing that. I personally do not think that I'm capable of doing that. So to me, this is a protection of our taxpayer dollars.
Councilmember Zapata.
Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, first, let me tell you that I believe that Councilmember Palermo was right on target. Totally makes sense, pure logic. And again, I want to reinforce that we do have at least two state house representatives in our districts in the city of Roswell. We have one state senator. We are a member of the Georgia Municipality Association. And also we have a city mayor. So I think that, if all of them works on the best interest of the city of Roswell, use another $75,000 to $150,000 taxpayers' money, at this point doesn't make much sense at all. I think we can invest much better in what we really need, which is economic development. So, if we can use the resources we have of elected officials at the state level, I think that, and make them accountable, and make sure that they are accountable with the constituents in the city of Roswell, I think there's a redundant to pay a exclusive lobbyist firm to be at the state capitol. So at this point, it's hard for me to support this initiative. I appreciate though that bringing forward the initiative, but I think that we need to explore first how to make accountable our state representative at the state and the House level, at the Senate, at the House level first, and then go from there. But at this point, I can't support this initiative. Thank you.
Councilmember Palermo.
And with it, so again, I appreciate the discussion and I appreciate everybody discussing what they see as pros and cons. Another issue I have with a practice that we seem to have is when we have budget discussions, I feel when we have full, true, proper budget discussions, I feel it's a transparent, helpful process for the public. They say, here's all the things that we might want to spend money on. Here's the benefits, the advantages, so many different aspects. And then ultimately this mayor and council decides what we want to decide to invest in and what we don't. We have a mid-year coming up at the end of the month. We have actually a full year going to be here before you know it, given the fact we're already in 2021. If this was something that this mayor and council and frankly even staff saw as an absolute priority, I think there would be full confidence. Bring this into the mid-year and let's discuss it with its merits with everything else. Or if you're not thinking about this until the second half of 2021, which is fiscal year 2022, then bring that in the full year budget. And if this mayor and council decides that this is a better use of 75 to 150,000, then this mayor and council should vote to approve that in the budget. My issue is, it's very easy when we see an expense request for a single thing, it's very easy to say, you know what, that seems like there would be benefits. Let's go ahead and pay for it. The problem is when we do that, we're deciding all these other things that we're not willing to discuss today, that those are not as important for it. And that's why I think it's totally relevant. Anytime we have a request for something to spend, let's discuss everything that we could possibly spend our money on, because doing it in a vacuum is a very different viewpoint. And in fact, that was something this entire council agreed when we gave staff guidance regarding the bridge aesthetics. We all said that we felt everybody would agree a solid gold bridge would look fantastic. But if we're going to advertise that to the residents, we need to show them the cost. And we need to show that, and then we need to understand what we're losing by spending all that money on that. So again, I think we need to be consistent. Let's bring this in either the mid-year budget or full year budget, and let's discuss it then. Again, I feel there's greater priorities and greater returns on investment. But this is an important topic. I'm glad we brought it up, and I think we seriously do need to just look at different ways. We do have more focus on at the state level, and make sure we are fighting for home rule and fighting for all these other aspects that were mentioned are under attack.
Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Palermo. What I would like to point out, as I said last night, this knife cuts both ways. And you're talking about discussing all of this in full disclosure, comparing everything within the budget process. I would like you to consider that as we move forward in our budget deliberations. When we talk about adding positions, deleting positions, when we talk about adding capital projects, deleting those, what I would like to highly suggest to this council and to you, Councilmember Palermo, is that we discuss all of those openly and in comparison and not in a vacuum. And I would like you to remember this conversation as we go forward, because that has been my contention all along, that we need to discuss all items and in comparison with each other, all capital projects, when all other capital projects are on the table, all positions within the city of Roswell, when all positions are in consideration. So please do not tell me, please don't tell me that you are willing not to discuss something in a vacuum today, but you will be tomorrow. So I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, Councilmember Palermo.
Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, Gary. I was wondering if you, Gary, or the mayor, or maybe Bob, could give us some live fire examples of over the last few years, how this request might or might not be able to pay for itself. Seems like there might be some things out there that would have. I mean, that probably is what drove this, but that might help the discussion.
I'm not quite sure what you're asking for. You want examples of how we would save money by using a lobbying firm?
Yeah, so you know, one example might be when the CARES Act money first came out, you know, it wasn't clear, you know, who should address their needs directly to the state versus the county. That wound up costing us some amount of legal fees to hire an attorney to get involved in suing the county. Could that have been avoided? Are there other items like that have occurred over the last few years that this might help? That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Can I correct you? Thank you, Councilmember Tizer. I would like to say that with the CARES Act money, we did not incur any legal fees. When the 14 mayors of Fulton County came together and we decided to fight Fulton County, it was the threat of litigation. And thank you to our legal department, because David Davison and Bob Halsey managed to pull together the legal documentation to represent all 14 cities. Fulton County backed off. So no, we did not need a lobbyist for Fulton County money. However, we do have other issues going on, and I could be foggy on this one, so please don't hold my feet to the fire, but I believe in the past, we used lobbying efforts on the state legislation that deals with annexation and de-annexation. I also believe, and maybe Mr. Halsey can correct my memory, it seems as though we had a couple of other big ticket issues that were coming our way. And we just did it on a contractual basis. Memory serves me, it was, you know, $50,000 here, 75 there, where we hired someone to protect our interests. Because as much as I don't like to admit it, lobbyists have a foothold in our state capital. So, and we can pick and choose, we can cherry pick what we use the money for. And what we go after as far as our lobbyists. But what is helpful is the number one position of a lobbyist is they have their eyes and their ears on the ground. They're listening to people. They can advise us as to what's coming forward. They can advise us as to what has legs, what doesn't, what we need to gear up for. So as what Councilmember Zapata said, I, as a mayor of Roswell, might not see something coming, but a lobbyist who is in the Capitol might apprise me of the situation and say, you need to get together with this person, this person, this person, let them know your views. You need to do this because I can't be everywhere at once. I wish I could. But then the other thing too is, you know, when we talked about this, not only are our state legislators responsible, our state senators, our national senators, our congressmen, our state senators, our House representatives, and me, and I will accept my accountability. But I also, ask you to accept your accountability, because you are not free in this. Every decision we make is an important decision. Every decision or every issue that we miss or nuances that we miss is on us. So all I'm saying is, I like to surround myself with very intelligent people. I like to surround myself with people that can represent the city of Roswell. And I look to our representatives, elected representatives, to do that. However, I will say that mix has changed. And I'm not sure what kind of representation we have at the state capitol or at the federal government.
And I'll just say that, I hate that we have to do this as well. But this is the nature of the beast, and we are paying for a service. We're paying for a service where we're gonna have somebody that's gonna be, have a direct line into our state legislature, can tell us when we need to gear up, can tell us when we need to stand down, can advise us on a daily basis if needed on what's going down at the Capitol. And if you look at the type of work that we're doing in local government now, so much different than 10 years ago, so much different than 5 years ago. I see it getting more and more intense. I see it getting more and more socially engaged. And I see what we see going on TV, and I see what is happening with the political trends. I don't see that going away. And I just feel a strong need for us to have this piece in place. So if we get into a situation where the federal government is going to distribute an allocation of money that we're going to be a subrecipient to, we need to have somebody in place that day to represent our interests, not a month later or not, a week after we're hearing about it. We've got to get this in place now. So I feel it's important. And I understand all the issues. I understand it's a lot of money, and I understand that this is a game that has to be played. Is there any other questions from the council? Councilmember Spotty.
Thank you. A couple things. If we're going to continue this discussion, I believe that would be really good to involve our state House representatives and a state senator and a U.S. representative of our district. I think that would be very useful to have their input and their view of this with their expertise and experience. So that is point number one. If we continue having this discussion, I would like to see them involved. I think makes totally sense and logical. And another point that I want to make that maybe a suggestion is, what about if we have a quarterly or semi-annual or whatever is decided work sessions at City Hall with our U.S. representative, with our state House representatives, and our state senator. So we can have maybe every quarter and exchange ideas, knowledge, information, and pass, which they should know because they represent the district that include Roswell, what is important for the people of Roswell. So I throw this as an idea to have more dialogue and interaction at the work session level with our U.S. representative and state House and senator.
Councilmember Palermo.
Right. I agree with some of that. I'd say at the national level for U.S. representative, I don't think that's relevant given all we're talking about is at the State House in Atlanta. But I do think it would make sense for a meeting in this discussion with our state senator, with our multiple state representatives, because again, there's no cost to get their opinion in a public meeting. There's no cost to really just hear from them and really push for accountability and a focus that the city of Roswell is going to be looking and watching for city focused items. So let's just have that discussion. It's no risk. And then I'm hopeful that can be a really the most effective way, as well as the lowest cost way to make sure we are represented. If that's not the case, then I think then we have this discussion again. And if we do, every single example of where this could come into play, again, has been items that would be across multiple cities. Councilman Tizer brought up the cities of Fulton County against the county. So that tells me we wouldn't want to go in with a county, but going in with other cities is going to give us strength in numbers, just like we had the strength in numbers going in against the county there. I think it's something where we do have the similar goals, because I understand there's different needs financially, different aspects like that. We can find similar cities: Alpharetta, Milton, Johns Creek, somewhat to a degree Sandy Springs. We can find similar cities, and that's something to explore. But again, let's start with actually just trying, instead of just assuming, no, the state senator and the multiple state representatives can't help. Let's just have a public meeting, get their feedback, and see where we go from there, instead of just automatically deciding to spend 75 to 150,000.
I will say that we're, I don't know, Bob, when is the legislative session? When do they go back into session? You know, offhand?
We're going into session this next Monday.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, we're behind the curve already. But I understand what you're saying. This is not ideal. I would have brought it up in the regular budget process if I did not think that we weren't behind on this. But we're already going to be late no matter what we do. I want to try to expedite this as quick as possible. So I really just kind of need some direction, yes or no. If the alternatives to kind of go and do what you want to do, Councilmember Palermo Zapata, that's fine. What I need is just kind of a yes or no, because if you guys don't want to go this way, then I'm just going to take it off my plate and focus on other stuff. So right now I'm just looking forward. Do you want me to solicit proposals to see what's out there and bring something back, and then we can talk about it? Or if this is just off the table, then just tell me, I'll drop it. Councilor Woolsey.
Yes, thank you, Gary. Thanks for bringing this forward. I just wanted to underscore, the sense of urgency and, the fact that the legislature is going into session and will be in just for the next few months. And just given all the changes and things that I know are top of mind, I think there is a lot of value in having this additional advocacy for the city, not only to look out for things for the best interests of our residents when it comes to things like 5G and home rule and zoning and things like that, but also to look for economic opportunities. I know there will be and continue to be emphasis on the film industry. So having folks there to represent the city in terms for the entertainment industry and tech and that sort of thing, there is a lot of value there. I also think that for us to sit down and work closely with our elected representatives is also important. Would be very supportive of that and having them report. But I do believe that there is some urgency to move ahead with this initiative.
Councilor Judy.
Thank you. Listening to all this conversation, that came to mind, which I know the mayor put together last year, and it was kind of derailed to COVID. But one of the main into this year, and I just did a quick search online regarding bills introduced in the House, in the state regarding the Chattahoochee. The Chattahoochee is, obvious main thoroughfare and are probably jewel. And I don't think all of us and all the elected officials are paying attention to the Chattahoochee on a daily basis, even though it's that important. So if somebody downstream in the Chattahoochee, Columbus, passes something, stream buffers or something that helps but hurts Roswell, and it gets by us, I would hate for us to have an issue with something because it's passed by and us not be able to take full advantage of what we have. We obviously have a silt problem at the Chattahoochee. We have upstream pollution. There's some coal ash landfill issues that are going through the House and Senate as well when it comes to it. So for me, I will go down. I think we should entertain this, and I will vote for this today just for that main issue of the Chattahoochee and other board. I know Councilman Palermo is probably going to say that's regional and that's a lot of other cities and we should get together with them. But, I think we would have a different take on our banks within the Chattahoochee and the things going on among other issues that are Roswell centric.
Councilor Hall.
Thank you, Gary. Um, you know, there's both sides. Very passionate arguments, and I can see both sides. My thought process is the legislative session, and I think this is a good idea, but I don't know that I can support it at this time. I'd like to see it at some point, but I want to talk there's a couple things I want to do. I want to talk to the folks involved in Alpharetta and see what their benefits were in this year that they had it. And the other thing, as far as the legislative session, I find it hard to believe that the main things that we feel that we're under attack, home rule and local zoning, are going to be a priority in this local session. So I don't see the sense of urgency in that sense, but not to say that I do think that there's a value to this. I just don't know that the timing is right. I think that this legislative session is going to be focused on economics, and that's where I would rather see the funds allocated towards an economic director, because that's what this is going to be about. It's about getting the economy back. And if we had somebody focused in the city of Roswell on Roswell doing that, I think that would be a better bang for our buck than a lobbyist. And it's not to say that I don't support it. I just would rather see those funds be directed more towards Roswell in that way.
Mayor?
Thank you, Councilmember Hall. I would like to point out that bills have been pre-filed to remove home rule and zoning decisions locally. So your contention that this is not appropriate or timely or urgent, I would argue with. Those bills have been pre-filed. They have been coming back, they've been coming after us for the last several years. And now with the shift in Washington, I can assure you that they have what they need to come after us very deliberately. So I would argue with you that we don't have any urgency here as far as home rule or zoning. So if we want to say to our citizens of Roswell, we're going to let the feds or the state or Fulton County determine our zoning and take away our home rule, that's fine. That would be our message to our citizens. But I am saying to you that we do have issues. I think that it is prudent for us to look at those issues, guard our home rule. And I would also like to point out for any of you that weren't involved in Fulton County, back when we were annexing Fulton County property, the main reason why we annexed the entire east side of Roswell is because Fulton County was not doing a good job with zoning. Fulton County was not listening to the citizens. And the people of East Roswell said, we want local government that is going to represent our interests. And so that's what we're in danger of losing. I just want to make sure we've got that on the table.
Councilmember Hall?
Thank you. Just to follow up to that. So, but the home rule and local zoning, that's a state. Are other cities also advocating for that, and GMA is advocating for that? It's not just a Roswell lobbyist. That's all I'm trying to identify. It's like, can we get the best bang right now for this money? If there's other people advocating for home rule and local zoning, maybe, and not to say that it's not a priority, of course it's a priority, but I'm looking at where to put the funds now.
Well, and if I might interject, my contention is GMA, while they do a wonderful job for the state of Georgia, they represent all of Georgia, and the majority of their interests are in very small towns in very rural areas. I mean, we're talking about towns that have one stoplight. We're talking about towns that have one intersection. And you know, at Councilmember Hall, you just attended a GMA Carl Vincent Institute, I'm not sure what they call it, but you just attended one. And you're sitting next to people that had absolutely no idea what goes into a city of 100,000 people. GMA's focus is not on the upper 5, 6, 7 cities in the state of Georgia. Their focus is on the smaller rural cities. So to say that we acquiesce to GMA, they're a great resource. They do fight hard for cities in the state of Georgia, but I don't think we can hang our hat on that.
Councilor Plural.
Thank you. So again, a lot of great points being made and two passionate topics for me, which are home rule and the Chattahoochee. And so I'll address the Chattahoochee first, which is that's something that absolutely is important. And what I'd say is, do we strongly, so I hope and I believe that this mayor and council all fully support really protecting the Chattahoochee. Does this mayor and council feel like we have done an excellent job making it clear to our state senator and our multiple state representatives how important that is? And I'm going to think, no, I don't think we've done that. So I think we should do that. So let's go ahead and do that as soon as possible. And also, I think it is something where multiple cities are on the Chattahoochee and have shared concerns. Not all in the Chattahoochee are equal, and that was an accurate point. But we certainly can find some similar vibrant communities that also would want to protect and benefit from protection of the Chattahoochee, just as we would. As for home rule, that's something absolutely we need to fight to protect. And frankly, if I was positive that spending $75,000 to $150,000 on a lobbyist would just guarantee Roswell's home rule is protected, then you'd actually see me probably having a different position today. But at the end of the day, there's millions of dollars being spent on lobbyists from all different sides, and a lot, obviously, from the corporate and developer sides that don't want the home rule and aspects like that. And so that's where I think we have a better chance when we have strength in numbers. So again, number one, what do we lose by at least just having this conversation with our state representatives and our state senator? Every single one of them are multiple term incumbents, and we've not done that. Let's just invite them in and show how important this is and hear what they say. And maybe they do discuss some benefits of a lobbyist, but let's have that as a public discussion before we just decide to spend this money. And let's do it ASAP. Number two is, again, I believe in strength in numbers, because every single good example I've heard are ones where we share similar concerns. Home rule is not just a Roswell concern. Alpharetta is very, very focused on home rule. They're very, very focused on protecting their strict zoning requirements. They're very, very focused on being opposed to what's been going on with 5G in relation to neighborhoods, et cetera. These are all common goods, and I stand by that if we find other similar cities, we'd have a better opportunity to make sure these things really have that louder voice. So again, I certainly believe it is not ready tonight to move forward as looking at having us just have an individual lobbyist, but let's have the next step be talk with state senate and state representatives, have this exact discussion, and then from there discuss if we want to look at reaching out to many, many different similar cities to see if there's a coalition we can form to really be a much louder and more visible force down at the State House versus one city paying for a lobbyist that may or may not even see us as a big priority or any realistic ROI that can come out of it.
Councilor Tyson.
Thank you, Gary. I'm going to ask a question, and hopefully everyone won't beat the snot out of me for asking the question. What if we could do both things? Is it possible for us to do a, 3-month agreement to try it, see what we get? It seems like some of this information is bilateral. It's things we want to be represented on. It's also things we want to hear about and learn about. And I'm just wondering, is it something we can, whatever it is, $5,000 a month or whatever, it might be, spend $15,000 or $20,000, see how we feel about it. Also, have a discussion with reps and see if that brings the kind of return that we hope it would bring. So again, just a thought, is that kind of thing possible? Because if there is that much value to this, I think we'd see it pretty quickly.
I can retain a firm for this legislative session under my authority under the $25,000 limit. If that is what the council would like to do, I can do that. I just need a motion and direction. Councilmember Spada.
Thank you. So I think that I appreciate the urgency of this now, is now or never, and if not, the house is on fire situation, which I don't appreciate. I wish that this was discussed months ago, like I've been discussing for years about economic development director. So now it's all of a sudden we need this or everything will get on flame. So I don't believe on that. I don't buy this argument. And I think that there's actions that we can take or we can start taking that will help us to improve the relationship and the connections at the state level and the U.S. Level too. So I think that organizing a work session with the state representative and the senators is first step first, and first tell them what is our issues, what are our concerns, that I'm sure that is many coincident with the same issues and concerns from the surrounding cities, from the city of Roswell. Democracy works. We have a state representative, we have a senator, so we vote for them, and then we expect them to represent and defend our best interests. But they need to understand what are the best interests on a day-by-day at the local level, and it's our duty to have a formal meeting with them, a public formal meeting, and exchange ideas and let them know what they're doing for us and make them accountable. So I think until we don't do that, it's hard to keep spending money on urgencies that come from one day to another. So I think that my approach is get this work session or whatever, or committee meeting or whatever it is, to get a formal meeting with our state representatives and tell them what is important for us. Tell them what we're going to be looking this year session at the Capitol in town, and let them know that we're watching, and then see, okay, do we need, on top of all of you, do we need a lobby so they can help you to do your job, or they can do the job themselves with the connections and all the colleagues they have and working together with their peers in downtown. So I don't want to be doing their job if they're capable to do the job and defend our best interest of us here in Roswell, and most probably surrounding city as well. So, and then forming a coalition of cities also is very effective, and was proved effective when that was led by the mayor of Johns Creek about fighting Fulton County. That was very effective. And we didn't have a lawyer or a lobbyist, external lobby or lawyers to do this job. So that proof was effective. It's just a matter of getting this group together of mayors and going through the agenda, see what is important, and make sure that all our state representatives from the area work with the state representative on the Capitol to get this done for us. So make them accountable. So I believe that they're capable to do the job for us, and they represent, this Roswell. So they're not coming from any other state, or they're from here. They represent us. We vote for them. We elect them to represent in downtown. So let's get this job done first. And then if this doesn't work, then we see what's step 2. But we need to use and explore step 1 first.
Mayor?
Thank you, Councilmember Zapata. I would like to correct some very inaccurate information that you are disseminating. Mayor Michael Bodker did not lead that charge. That charge was led by 14 cities in Fulton County, all of us being equal. As a matter of fact, I stepped up for the city of Roswell and offered our legal services to draft the complaint. We never hired an attorney. There was never anything that went forward. It was a threat with Fulton County. It was not Mike Bodker. It was 14 mayors, including me, in Fulton County. So please, don't tell mistruths again.
And I would like to ask for a motion. It's been an hour if we've discussed this, so I would like to move on. Okay. What's your council's pleasure? Councilor Palermo?
I'd like to propose that we officially invite all of our representatives that serve down at the in Atlanta, that they come, whether it be a work session or committee, whatever the mayor would recommend or what would be appropriate, and that we also potentially discuss as the plan B, what are similar cities to potentially form a coalition to see if they'd be interested in joining together. And keeping in mind that in the motion, that's the plan B. The plan A is first getting the guidance, but just at least having that list ready in case we don't have a lot of confidence regarding the discussion or they do recommend a lobbyist.
So the motion, just to capture, would be to contact our local representatives to set up a meeting between them and the council?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
And I'm gonna call the roll. Councilor Judy, you have a question?
So we're motioning to have a meeting with the elected officials at City Hall without speaking to them first about this opportunity, and if they want to come, and calling them to come to our City Hall and just say, hey, have to come speak on this issue. We motion to have y'all come to do this. What are because what we the thing on the was discussion and consideration to solicit proposals for lobbying services. I think we either do that or not. And if we want to go down the road of inviting elected officials to an open public meeting, I think that's a whole different topic than what we're discussing here. What we're discussing here is discussion of consideration to solicit proposals for lobbying services.
Yeah, I would like a yes or no vote. And then if the council decides it wants to do an alternative, then I guess you can offer that as a motion.
Except I want to clarify the motion though, in the sense that by no means is it requiring they come, but it's motioning for us to officially invite, because nobody on council can officially serve as the city. The mayor can, or the city administrator can with our guidance. I'd like to do a motion where we officially invite them for that and hear back on their thoughts if they're able to join, interested. So that's number one clarification that I want to give. And number two, I feel it's very relevant, because what I'm bringing up is, instead of hiring an individual lobbyist for $75,000 to $150,000, instead we invite them to discuss, where we can ask them these questions and hear their feedback, etc. So that was the purpose of my motion.
So there's a motion on the floor, there's a second, and the motion is to invite our local legislators to meet with the city council. I'm gonna call the roll.
Oh, Maurice.
Councilor Wilson, do you have a question?
Well, yes, a question and maybe a clarification, a alternate suggestion. Would it be possible for us to do some homework and take a look at the bills that have been pre-filed and see what is potentially coming up that might impact the city of Roswell and where we need representation? I know we have an idea of what some of those might be, but I think it would really be very pertinent for us to know exactly what's coming up, and then to have some, formal and informal conversations with our elected representatives to find out exactly what they see is going on. And in the meantime, have a city administrator, begin to look into, what some possibilities might be for representation by lobbying firm, and then talk about it in 2 weeks.
Councilor Sizer.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if Councilmember Palermo would consider amending his motion as follows. Considering the fact that our legislatures right now are in session, which is greater than a full-time job, in addition to their normal full-time jobs. And there is some, I think, value in what is being proposed. Instead of planning a meeting with our legislators, why don't we invite a couple of lobbying firms in to come and tell us what they can do for us? And so we would then be evaluating what the actual potential return might be. So that would be of interest to me, based on the fact that right now, we're probably not going to get those representatives here in a reasonable time frame.
I'm asking for exactly what you're saying. I'm asking to solicit proposals to find out what services we can get for lobbying. And then I would bring that contract back to the city council for you guys to consider. That's all I'm asking for tonight.
I guess the clarifying part was that the description was considered soliciting and contracting. If you're soliciting, that's kind of different.
Okay. Well, we have a motion on the floor in a second. Unless there's going to be an amendment to that motion, I'm going to call the roll.
So given just, I guess, concerns I have on regarding the timing, and that certainly all the legislators are working a lot, I guess I do have a concern with that. It makes me think, I'm not, again, without hearing from our state legislators and having any type of public discussion around that, I am certainly not comfortable in even considering hiring lobbying services unless they really feel that they're not going to be able to do a good job of representing Roswell's needs, and or B, that they really feel that a lobbyist will help that more. Without having that, I'm certainly not ready to rush into to having staff spend time soliciting proposals and really looking deep into this. That's where I really want to look at, again, potentially a coalition of what are similar cities we could reach out to see if they're interested, as well as I think we should all reach out to our legislators and see what is their schedule on if and when they could meet with us in the very near future.
So the motion on the floor is to contact our state legislatures and set up a meeting with the city council. Councilmember Judy.
Can we just defer this to the next meeting? Because I don't think anybody here is understanding where any of this is going when it comes to what Councilmember Palermo. The only thing I understand is this was for you to solicit and see what services a lobbying firm could offer us. I'm definitely for that. I'm always open to see what services can be offered and then make a decision. But since we're in a situation where we are now an hour and 6 minutes into a lot of round and round talk, I'd prefer just to defer it to the next session, and then everybody needs to get their own information, do their homework, so we don't go through this again.
And I would support amending my my motion to the deferral based on Councilman Judy's request.
We need to vote on that, Bob? Oh, okay, we are deferring. Moving on to the next item. Under administration, item number 3, consideration of text amendments to section 14.3.3, zoning requirements, and chapter 15, special events, filming, and public use of city facilities of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances. Mr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Mayor and council, this is an item that we've had some.
Sprinkle your volume a little low. Can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. It did that earlier too. How's that if I speak up?
It's a little better. You may have to get right on top of that computer.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. So this item is one that we had talked with you all earlier about, and part of it has to do with just house cleaning and getting some of the code language in order for this special events division versus ComDev versus recreation and parks and some sponsorships and things. And that didn't seem to be much of an issue. We also had a recommendation a while back about how we could maybe limit commercial operations on non-commercial properties that were kind of going through as special events. So we were talking a lot about that, and we've had that conversation. So this was just requested to be brought back. We had looked at it through request to look at it from a zoning standpoint. And that's kind of where we left it at. So I think today what we're looking for is there's still consideration to change how we allow special events, or do we just continue with the special events like we have them? Maybe there's not that much of an issue or a problem to address, but we do need to address cleaning up some of the language within that. So I guess today I was just looking for consideration for the text amendments and possibly the code changes, but I'll leave that up to you all if there's any further discussion.
Floor is open. What are you looking for? Councilman Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. So, Mr. Fisher, thank you. So, here's my perspective, and obviously, as always, I'm only speaking for myself. I've been very vocal the last, multiple years that I want to make it easier for those having events. I want to make sure those events are following rules and all that. But at the end of the day, I felt a lot of what was presented was creating a solution where there wasn't really a problem. And examples I give of that, I learned from, I think it was from the mayor, and I had no idea that back when it was 9 on Canton Street, that the whole reason that they could have those lawn chairs out with the glasses of wine was it was an ongoing special event. I didn't know that, but I thought it was just a great aspect, showed a lot of people outside. So I don't want to do something that's restricting something like that. Another example is, and so that's one example of just, it was a for-profit that had basically a permanent special event going. Right. And again, I'm not looking to make it so that should not have been allowed. I don't think that was causing an issue. And then another example is, so this would be making it so that special events could not be on conservation. There's 2 concerns I have there. One is what I've learned from the legal department is details around the fact that property must have a basic, I forget the exact words, but must have an economic value or benefit. I forget the exact words. So basically with conservation, knowing that things couldn't really be built or anything like that, it seems like special events should be a possibility. And so as I look through in the packet for staff recommendations, the one thing that actually I really liked and supported and agree with is conservation and residential zoning applications must get approval from MCC after staff review. That's something that makes sense to me, because then it gives the opportunity, is there going to be something that's causing a disruption? Because again, residential, I see a lot of special events that the neighborhoods absolutely want, they absolutely enjoy. And if we're going to follow to the letter of the law, then, which I feel we should. I feel if we're going to write a law, we should be following that law. If not, we should be changing it to make sure it's more appropriate for the community. So I feel there's a lot of quote unquote special events that are happening in residential that are not a disruption. They're something that the neighborhoods enjoy, end of the year parties, beginning of school parties, fall festival, whatever it might be. But again, if staff's recommending that MCC approve just to make sure it is the right special event, the right location, something along those lines, I'm okay with that. But again, I'm not supportive of just making it so that more special events can't occur. Because again, especially in the COVID era, I want to make sure we're being flexible and supportive for our businesses that are going to potentially look for more opportunities outside. And again, that's where I think the right approval is appropriate, the right rules are appropriate, but just to specifically outlaw ongoing events, that's where I have a concern.
So, and I appreciate you saying that. I want to make this clear that the current ordinance does not allow special events in conservation. The one that we're moving forward after you all's request to look at from a zoning standpoint would allow it to do that. So I agree with you. I think it makes it easier and it opens it up for everybody to do it through this zoning like you all had asked us to bring back.
Thank you. Yeah, no, great point, Mr. Fisher. Thank you for giving that clarification. And then I guess the concern is just in general ignoring conservation, just the limit on duration of event. Because again, if we use the example of 9 on Canton Street, that's something where I don't feel we should have said they can only do that for 3 days or 3 nights or something along those lines. And that's where my concern is. And I think same thing where we want to discuss with the proper public approval and public process of what was used as the from the earth beer garden. That was something where I don't think we should just be saying it can only be 3 days. I think it's something where on a case by case basis there should be a possible approval where they don't just have a 3-day limit, but again up to mayor and council or staff or whatever you think and this council thinks is the best approach.
So if I can, let me share my screen so that you all have this. This is where we left it the last time. Can you all see that? Oh, I did it right. Great. So this is where we left it last time, that the conservation and residential would be approved through the mayor and council after it goes through the review from staff. And then the restrictions, there's no limit on the number of events, and there's no limit on the duration of an event except with alcohol. So if you're a nonprofit with alcohol, remember, a nonprofit can still do as many events as they want. They're not limited except for if they do it themselves outside of a license. So they can do 2 events on our current code with no license and no catering or anything. If they want to do more than that, they have to work through a licensed caterer or alcoholic beverage licensing. And then the other one was no limit on the duration of event, except again for nonprofits with alcohol. Now it'd be no change. So there is no limit now for what they can do unless it's with a nonprofit with alcohol. And they can only do 2 on their own.
So just a quick clarifying question, and then very curious to hear Councilman Judy's questions and comments. So if it is a nonprofit with no alcohol, there's no limit.
Correct.
And if it's a for-profit with alcohol, there's no limit?
There is a 3 consecutive day limit, which is what's in our current ordinance right now. That doesn't, we're not changing that.
Okay, and that's where I think we should change that. But again, curious.
Oh, I got you. I thought you were saying that the other way. No, right now the current law says that, and we didn't make that change. But what you're saying is you're looking to change it from the alcohol to not have the limit on alcohol. I'm sorry. Okay. Councilmember G, did you have a question?
Hold on a
Yes.
second, Michael. Hold on a second.
Oh, I'm
Michael.
sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Mayor, go ahead.
I would like to say, and I've said this at previous meetings and I'll say it again, zoning. Zoning is the single thing that protects us as landowners. It protects us as adjacent landowners. It protects us as landowners. When you and I buy a home, a business, a piece of property, it's based on zoning. We know what uses are allowed. Also, when it's a neighboring piece of property, we know what uses are allowed. By subverting zoning and saying this council can take a piece of property that, for example, my backyard is a cemetery. So my expectation of that cemetery is that we will not be having festivals or beer gardens in the cemetery. That's my expectation. I did my due diligence when I bought the home. I knew what it was zoned. So my concern is not 1 or 2 events a year. Shoot, we're all good with that. I would think we are. But 5 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year, we're circumventing zoning law. And I find that to be a travesty. I can't get around that. So I'm sorry, but we need to limit the number of special events if we're going to circumvent zoning law. That's the only thing that protects our residents. That's the only thing that protects our citizens, our residents, our business owners, is zoning law when it comes to land use. So now we're going to just do a curveball right around it And we're going to tell our residents that we want to be very open, transparent, and responsive to that, oh, well, you know, that might be a zoning classification that doesn't allow this, but, you know, we went ahead and allowed it last week. So just a thought. Thank you.
Councilmember Judy.
All right, so I have a couple questions and thoughts, and maybe somebody can shed some light on this. I disagree with Councilman Palermo on 5 days a week, possibly 365 years a day, or 365 days a year, having a special event on a lawn with chairs and wine and this, that, and the other. I think that's a business, not a special event. A special event is, by the word special. That means it's something that happens every so often, not on an ongoing basis. So maybe there's a difference between an event permit and a special event permit, or a business. And I don't really understand where we're going here. And maybe that's a ComDev question, because I think a special event is a special event. It's not by definition the word special. I don't think it's a business that has something going on in perpetuity. Now, if there is something that we need to come up with in which somebody can come apply for something on land, that we then give them the right to do it for a certain period of time, I don't think that's a special event. That's my first point. Second point is, I think the 3-day limit keeps it a special event. Anything over 3 days, if you did it week to week to week to week, then it's not a special event. If it's a 5-day event and you do it once a year, then hey, maybe that's different. So maybe the days are different. But if it's a continuous event that continues week after week or 2 times a month or something, I think that is not a special event anymore. The nonprofit thing, I'd like to know the reasoning on why after 2 events they need to go through a licensee. Is that due to creating business and just basically making sure that a nonprofit can't basically set themselves up as an alcohol licensee? Is that a state law? That's what it seems like to me, because that makes sense if that's the reason why. Otherwise, you know, you're giving nonprofits the right to have special events in perpetuity with alcohol, but nonprofits who use alcohol a lot to drive stuff to 501c3s for good causes are limited. So I'd like to know the reason behind that. Again, I just think there's a difference between a special event and maybe an ongoing event, like a, you know, Cirque du Soleil setting up the circus down at Atlantic Station that stays there for 3 months. That's not a special event anymore. I don't know. So those are my questions.
I can address the one with the nonprofit special event. Originally, I don't know how this got started, but a nonprofit is allowed 2 events a year where they can serve and sell or do whatever they want to do with the alcohol. So for instance, if I'm a nonprofit and I get with Walmart or whoever sells alcohol and say, hey, can you donate me some alcohol for an event? They can do that twice a year. The reason that they're only limited to twice a year is because there's no licensing and no restrictions. They don't have training. They don't have their employees responsible for knowing how to deal with the selling or serving of alcohol. But we wanted to make it available because some of the events, the wine events or things that they may do, they have the ability to do that. If they're going to do more than 2, we don't want to just have, the city doesn't want to just open it up for, like you said, a nonprofit to be able to just do alcohol all year long and get around all of the state requirements and the training that goes into being able to have alcohol at an event. So there's 2 that they can do, but after that, they can do more with alcohol, but they need to have somebody that's trained and licensed and regulated in the sale or service of alcohol.
Makes sense.
Councilmember Clerk.
Excellent. So Councilman Judy said he disagreed with me, and the irony is everything he said, I actually think we agree on. My point is, I feel it should have been legal for 9 to have people drinking wine in those lawn chairs on that grass right there. If we want to call it a special event, an event, something, create something brand new, that's a separate discussion. What I'm really focused on, should we be outlawing something or should we be making it legal? That's something I feel we should make it legal. One way to do it is through special event. One way is we keep this, we decide to use this special event language, we create something different. But then what I want to understand from staff is, could 9 have used that grass property, yes or no? And if the answer is no, it would have been illegal, then I say, okay, let's figure out how we solve that. As for kind of zoning concerns, those are something that I'm certainly very sensitive to. And interestingly enough, in 5 years here, one thing I've learned from our legal department through real examples the city of Roswell went through is, so I guess first off, my philosophy is absolutely you move somewhere, something nearby is zoned a specific way, I feel you deserve the expectation it stays that way unless there's creating a better benefit to the community by having a rezoning. But there's 2 exceptions under state law from what I've learned from our legal department. Those 2 exceptions are agriculture and conservation. And the reason those 2 are unique is because those are things where under case law in Georgia, that a landowner needs to have the right to economic gain or economic benefit from their property. It does not mean despite some developers trying to tell us in public meetings, it does not mean they have the right to request anything they want. It means the council a city has to give them the right to economic benefit, and the economic benefit that the mayor and council feels appropriate. And 2 examples where that happened were ones on the east side where it was zoned agriculture. So for example, one of them, it was agriculture, they requested to be zoned to RS9. And we instead said, okay, we realize we have to rezone them, but instead of rezoning them to RS9 like requested, we rezoned them to RS30. And so I bring that up because with conservation, if we do allow this with a mayor and council approval, then what we're doing is we are creating an economic benefit and just another option that mayor and council may or may not feel is appropriate depending on the location. So I just think we should give ourselves that flexibility as a possible option. And I certainly encourage and think anything we do should have staff and obviously mayor and council having the ability to limit days, limit times. But again, my goal is to create opportunities for more outdoor events when the weather gets nicer, for more social distancing.
Mayor?
Councilmember Plenderman, what I'd suggest we do, if you would like to, you can spearhead a rezoning of this conservation property into a more appropriate property to have 5 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. So that way the zoning is expected, the uses are expected, and the zoning fits the uses. So I would highly suggest that you might want to champion that.
Councilor Zapata?
Thank you. So, no, I heard like a beer garden in a cemetery, which I think it would be a totally lack of respect to have a beer garden on the cemetery where the souls rest in peace. So, well, I think we have to contemplate, Michael, different kind of events. You know, some of them might be one day a year. Some others might be 3 consecutive days during the weekend a year. Maybe some of them will be once a week during the spring, summer time, where people like to spend more time outside and gather together outside. Some others might be, 3 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, first, second quarter, third quarter. I mean, I think there's different options if we want to promote special events or whatever we want to call them. There's multiple options of events that could happen in the city. We have beautiful landscaping, we have beautiful topography for different kind of events. So I don't know if this legislation covers all kind of events that we can contemplate throughout the year. I think that that would be helpful for staff first to understand what can approve and what cannot approve, or what need to come to mayor and council approval or not. So I don't know if this contemplate every single possibility of different kind of events or special events, non-profit, for-profit, with alcohol, without alcohol, that, or if not, we just need to, get for mayor and council approval.
Lori?
Councilmember Thacker.
Thank you, Gary. This whole discussion's both confusing and wearing me out. If we have a piece of land that's not zoned properly, well, let's rezone it. Let's go through the process, rezone it. If that creates more economic value, that's great. But I think what it's starting to feel like to me is we're trying to put a square peg into a round hole here. We're trying to figure out how to take a piece of property and make it something that it's not. Let's just see if any of these properties involved in this discussion should be something else, then bring forward a public rezoning. And if enough people support it, and if enough of us vote for it, then this, I think, and Mr. Fisher can help me here, would fall under whatever that zoning category is. So if you wanted to run, the example keeps coming up, a beer garden, all during the summer, you would want to zone the property, what? Some other thing, and then you do it that way. It just seems like that's really what we're trying to get at here. And so, my hope is if that's where everyone's head is, then let's put that, talk to whatever landowners are involved in these issues, and let's get it zoned properly.
Councilmember Wiltie.
Yeah, thank you, and great discussion all around. In thinking about the special events on conservation and agricultural, I think it would be interesting to look around and see what some other cities around the state are doing. I mean, several things come to mind where there are farms where they have built a stage and hold weekly concerts during the summer. So I would just be curious how that's zoned, or farms where they're doing pumpkin patches and hay rides and music and things like that. I'm just curious how those are zoned, and if that's something we need to look at. I don't imagine that's a special event. That's more of a business.
This zoning isn't conservation and agriculture as
Correct.
you normally think. This is a conservation zoning that the city of Roswell has defined. There's
Correct.
another kind of conservation ag that you can set a farm out aside and things like that. So this is a zoning that we have that's conservation. Jackie, if I'm saying that right, it's not the same as a conservation and ag like you're thinking of in a farm type setting.
Well, no, I mean, I'm thinking as a land use. I mean, it obviously has this very parallel to what we're saying, a conservation use for a property that's set aside that is being used for, an ongoing special event. I'm just curious how that's being handled.
That's set up just like you said. It's through an event type permit, not a special event, but like
Correct.
a venue. We don't have one of those unless it be something through ComDev in a business, but that's not this.
Right.
This is we're talking about special events.
Right.
Councilmember Zapata, I can assure you I have not contemplated every kind of event. I know I haven't. There's got to be events out there that I haven't contemplated. But I will tell you that if you're a special event, we no longer have a limit on the duration. We no longer have a limit on the zoning except for residential and conservation in the city of Roswell. And all you have to do is come to mayor and council after a review to get a final approval on those two. If you have alcohol, right now, we're saying that you need a 3-day duration. At the end of 3 days, you need to take a break so that you're not running alcohol 365 days a year. So that takes in about everything. The one that it doesn't take in, as Councilmember Palermo had mentioned, is in the one where and it was in commercial already, so that could probably be handled through a mayor and council meeting, but somebody that wanted to have it in the yard in a more of a business district, it makes sense to me. I don't know that we need to worry about handling that through a special event. There's not that many, let them come to mayor and council. So our idea is no limit on the duration of an event unless it has alcohol, then it's 3 days. Other than that, you can have events all that you want, and you can have it on every zoning except conservation and residential, and that's if you bring it forth to mayor and council. So that's kind of all we're looking at. I'm done.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Jackie, do you have something to fill in? I asked her a question earlier about the 9 and how that happened. If she could answer that, and then I've got 2 quick points.
You want to know about the restaurant 9?
How did that happen? What was there not, is there something in our code that they could have come and got that permanently?
I can take a look and see. I don't believe that was a special event. I don't remember at that time if that went through and got a special event permit. I'd have to take a look at the records from back then. I remember them just out there sitting on the, grass and eating and drinking. And it was like every day. So, or every other day or however you want to call it. But I could have to take a look in our records from back then and see if they had any type of approvals related to a special event. So I cannot actually say if it was one or not.
Let's go ahead.
It had nothing to do with special event. It had to do with getting catering alcohol permit, because the business next door would get a catering permit to allow him to cater and serve alcohol on that piece of property. And so it was a collusion between the 2 property owners, but it was not a special event. It was just a loophole in the alcohol at the time.
Is that loophole still there?
It is not, because of the catering things that we tightened up after that.
Okay. Thank you. So here's I really just, the only thing my point is here is I want a special event or business. And if it's a special event, let's just get these here. I'd even like somebody to be able to come over the 3-day limit and come to mayor and council if they have a 5-day event that's got to be beneficial, and that could fit in with what Councilman Palermo said earlier about coming to council to decide on special event and conservation and residential. Obviously I don't, like you said, I think it's impossible to foresee every special event that's got to come. We got to do our best here and react as we go. But we're 36 minutes into this. We're an hour and 30 minutes into two things. If last night and today are any thing on what this year is going to look like, we're in some deep trouble. So we need to get some work done and let's come to a decision here and move on.
Councilor Sparta.
Thank you. Yeah, let's get a well done job first. So what if we remove conservation and we just leave residential? That will resolve the issue?
No, I think we want special events on conservation.
No, but you said permits for events, the residential zone district. So what about if we just leave residential and we contemplate conservation like the other zonings that we specify above?
Well, I believe the reason that we put the residential and conservation together to come back to mayor and council is because it's such a restrictive zoning that I don't feel like that staff has the ability to approve a special event on such a restricted zoning. You all, of course, do, because ultimately you make the final decisions. So if it's an event that is an appropriate event for that, for a conservation or residential, I think it would be better served to say that they can, as long as they get a final approval from you guys. So that's why they're both on there.
Because removing conservation will resolve the issue and we can move on, I believe.
questions or comments from the council? What are you looking for, Michael?
So I'm looking for approval of course, the text changes that it doesn't seem like we have any issues with those. But approval for those few items that I had brought up earlier, these items, you know, the limits don't change. There's no limit on the event permits. There's no limit on the duration except with alcohol. To allow events on all zoning other than conservation residential, and then to, for conservation residential, let those come back, I believe, to mayor and council. I think that opens it up, and I think it makes it very easy for people to understand. And Councilmember Judy, to your point, if what staff can do is the 3 days can kind of be the standard. If an event comes in that makes sense, that's more than 3 days, we'll be glad to bring it over just to let you all know, have that discussion at a committee meeting and see where to go from there. So I think we can handle that okay. But Gary, these are what I'm looking for to move these 4 these 4 bullets forward. Actually, the top 2 are no change. The bottom 2 is to move it over to zoning.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council? Councilman Hall.
I'm sorry, I know we want to move on. I just do have one question, and this is going back to Mayor Henry's point. Special event, the language is the special event permits are available for events in NXCXSH as it's written. What's different currently in any of those zonings?
The way it's written currently, conservation is not included. So you cannot technically even have a special event in a conservation zoned area right now.
No, that's not my question. I understand that residential and conservation are added here as special things that come to mayor and council, but of all the other zonings, there's no change. That the only change is adding residential.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yeah, just adding those in there. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Judy.
Motion to approve is written.
Motion to approve is written. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Hall. Any questions or further discussion from the council? All in favor, please raise your hands. I'm going to call the roll. So there's a motion on the floor to approve is written. Second by Councilmember Hall, made by Councilmember Judy. Mayor Henry.
No, I don't support the motion.
Councilmember Hall. Yay or nay? I know you seconded, but you still.
Yay, second, yay.
Councilmember Judy.
Yay.
Councilmember Palermo.
You were muted.
Sorry, nay.
Councilmember Tizer.
You're muted, Matt.
Yeah.
This is such a tough one for me. I forgot to take myself off mute. Based on what you've described, I think this is a tough one. Why don't you roll through the roll and I'll come back to it here. Give me a moment.
Councilmember Wilson.
Yay.
Councilmember Zapata.
So just a clarification here, this is just to come to mayor and council meeting and have a public input and discussion, correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
So that is not this is not in stone, so it's always possibility to change the text and also based on whatever input we have during the mayor and council regular public meeting, correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir. This is just to bring it forward to the council.
Okay, yes. Bring it, yes.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you for that explanation. I'll go yes.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to item number 4, consideration to reclassify funds from grant match contingency to professional services for costs associated with an evaluation plan and narrative for the city of Roswell and AmeriCorps after school project. Ms. Boynton.
Mayor, council members, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Fisher, Mr. Halsey, thank you for having Danny and I here from the Grants Division tonight. The first item is to address our current City of Roswell AmeriCorps After School Project grant. We are in year 3 of implementation, and in year 3, you are required to do an evaluation of your project to see basically how things are going, including relative to impact. We included a line item in our budget for this purpose. However, if we are looking forward to recompeting, we also need to consider not just a look back at where we've been, but a look forward at where we're going. And an evaluation plan is required. Unfortunately, the line item that we currently have in the budget cannot be modified to include a look forward. I guess that is considered basically development of a potential next grant, which has not yet been requested. So we are asking for purposes of our project, if we could please reclassify $3,400 from our grant match fund to professional services in order to be able to look forward and do an evaluation of where this project might go should we choose to recompete for another 3 years.
Thank you, Megan. Questions from the council? Councilman Palermo.
Thank you, appreciate that, Megan. I guess, this one seems unique to me compared to all the other ones we've done over the years. So I guess it's not completely clear to me. It's my understanding, and Megan and Danny, please tell me if I'm misunderstanding. It's my understanding we have basically our grant match fund that we often have, and we basically use that money and save that money for any time there's a grant where they'll give us a grant if we give it, so it's basically matching, and that's why we have it. And so therefore, a lot of the times you'll come forward, hey, we have this matching grant, it's $10,000. If we take $10,000 from our matching grant fund, then we get $10,000 from the grant, and now we have $20,000 for this great cause, and now we've doubled our money. So that I'm very familiar, and you've brought a lot of those forward, and your the ROI on your roles is so high, and really appreciate all that you're doing. This, it's not completely clear to me. So it looks to me, I just want to understand. So it's basically we go to our fund, which has money that we've saved for really just kind of doubled impact for grant matching, and so we take $3,400 of it, and then basically with that $3,400, help me understand, is there grant money that we're getting from that, or just help me understand how this is working?
Well, I think there's probably 2 parts to that, if I may, and Danny, jump in if you would like. The first part is that we set aside a certain amount of money, match funds, for this particular grant in the current year. We do not expect to expend all those match dollars, including because while we have 6 wonderful AmeriCorps members who have joined us this year for service in the city, we do not have a complete cohort of members. So there is money that is expected to be left over in that match fund, if you will, from this particular grant. The second part is that while we would look to modify the existing budget and use some of the money that we had set aside for the review, it is not allowed to modify that to, again, conduct what amounts to a look forward to a future project. So to the extent that that would be necessary in order to recompete and potentially, allow for continued growth and success of the project, we think it's worth putting that into professional services and to allow for that. To allow for that for 2021, 2022.
Thank you for that explanation.
Councilman Rawl.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a quick question, and maybe I misheard this. Did you mention that that part of this look forward is to decide if we wanted to continue this again for 3 years, or is this something that we would plan on continuing?
Well, with respect to the fact that we have another item on the agenda, our thought is we would like to be able to continue. It would allow for us to continue, I think, more efficiently. Evaluation planning would be conducted together with a professional, with a consultant, would help us to ensure that we're on the same page with our nonprofit partner and that we've got the right goals in place and relative, again, to community impact.
Thank you. Yeah, I was hoping to hear that because I saw the other item and I thought, I know it's a great program. So thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions or concerns from the council? Megan, what are you looking for? What kind of motion? What do you need?
We are looking for a motion to reclassify $3,400 in funds from the city's grant match contingency to professional services for purposes of an evaluation plan and follow-up thereafter on the plan.
Councilmember Tizer.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Approved by Councilmember Tizer. Did I hear a second? Councilmember Hughes. Any further questions or comments from the council? All in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Which
Megan. Item number
leads
5,
us into the
consideration-
second.
Yep. Item
Yeah.
consideration to apply for a 2021 AmeriCorps grant from Georgia Serves, formerly the Georgia Commission for Service and Volunteerism, in the amount of $122,155.
Yeah, so I suspect this is the motion that you would be more familiar with. We would in fact like to, after this first 3-year implementation period, continue this project. We feel that it's gained traction. National service is now established in our community. And despite COVID, we had the addition of 1 more member this year. I'd like to think that that growth could continue. I believe Danny would like to think that too, and that if committee is so inclined to recommend to council or to mayor and council, that we go ahead and apply once more, specifically for 2021, 2022, and for a total amount of $122,155, of which our match would be $40,878.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilmember Palermo. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Tizer. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. And it is unanimous. The mayor stepped away. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks, Danny.
Yes.
Number 6, under finance, presentation of fiscal year 2021, second quarter investment report. Mr. Luckett.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen real quick. So this is our second quarter investment report. So before I get into the actual numbers of the report, just as a reminder, the city, mayor, and council have adopted an investment policy. And in that investment policy, the city has several objectives, and those are listed here on the report in order of priority. So safety, compliance, liquidity, and income. And the funds that the city invests, those are idle funds that are either belong to our emergency fund that we hold for uncertainties or emergencies in the future, or they would be other funds that have been collected, have been allocated, but are not yet spent. So that makes up the bulk of what is invested. So we wanted to give you an update as of where we stand through halfway through the fiscal year. So as you see here at the bottom of the report, this provides you an overall look at the portfolio as a whole. And as you can see, the yield of the city's portfolio as of December was 56 basis points compared to the 1-year treasury, which is at 10 basis points. So as you can imagine, With the onset of the pandemic, that caused a huge shift downward in interest rates. You can see all the way back in January of 20, we were at about 160 basis points. So quite a big decrease over the last year. The next page gives you just a graphical representation of that same number. So here you can see the city's earning about 46 basis points more than the one-year Treasury benchmark. The pie chart here at the bottom gives you just an idea of how our funds are allocated across our different vehicles. You can see that over half of our funds are in our bank. About a quarter of our funds are in Georgia Fund 1, which is our local government investment pool. 1% of the funds are invested in municipal bonds, 8% are invested in CDs, and 12% are invested in agencies. And just to kind of give you an idea, so, typically we don't keep this much in the bank. The primary reason behind that is because as the pandemic came on, interest rates were going down. A lot of the city's bonds that we were holding were called, and that cash, those investments were redeemed and the cash came back to the city. And instead of reinvesting those funds immediately, knowing that we were going through the procurement of an investment advisory firm, we decided to hold those funds to keep them as liquid as possible so that we could transition into this new relationship that you all approved a couple months back. Moving on to the next page. This table here gives you an idea more specifically as to what our funds are invested in. It goes through our bank deposits again, local government investment pool, CDs, and the various federal agencies that we invest in. Down at the bottom, this bar chart just gives you an idea over the past year as to the total amount that we have invested across the past year. And the different colors give you the breakdown in each segment. And this black line shows you kind of where we were a year ago. Okay. Moving on, portfolio liquidity, just to give you an idea of where we stand there. So out of our total portfolio of $139 million, it has a average length to maturity of half a year. That is primarily because we have so much in our bank, and that will be shifting as we get this relationship going with our investment advisory firm. Down below the maturity schedule, you can see again that the vast majority of our portfolio is maturing or available in a year or less. And again, you'll see that shifting as we get this investment advisor relationship moving. So finally, the last few pages of the investment report just give you a detailed listing of all the investments in the CDs, the federal agencies, municipal bonds, and then the bank deposits in Georgia Fund 1, and where those funds and how much are located there. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions if anyone has any. Thank you very much.
Floor is open. Seeing no questions, Ryan, I'm assuming you're looking for no action, so I will thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Moving on to Recreation and Parks, no action items. So moving on to other items, item number 7, consideration of ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2.1, in general, to provide a new section 2.1.7, procedures of mayor and council meetings of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. Councilor Spot.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. So this is a simple and straightforward item. It's about promoting clarity and avoiding any future misunderstanding regarding the Code of Ordinance, regarding the procedures of the mayor and council meetings. So I don't know if the city attorney will read the ordinance, the section that we are talking about, please.
It's not a first reading. Do you want me to read the whole thing?
No.
Read whatever we are, Chapter 2.
Required, if it's a first reading at council, ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Administration, Article 2.1 in general, to to provide a new section 2.1.7 procedures of mayor and council meetings of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Roswell. That's all that's required to be read at a council meeting. Now, what you have put in there is section 2.1.7, one, motion, comma, second, comma, discussion of council. Each, and I noticed that council is misspelled, it should, never mind. Each item voted on by the mayor and council shall at a minimum follow the sequence. A, motion. B, second of motion. C, mayor and council shall be given the opportunity to comment / discuss and / or amend the motion. Parent, if the motion is amended, this procedure starts over from letter A of this section, close parent. And D, council vote. Number 2, prohibition on voting. No singular elected official may prohibit another elected official which is otherwise present, and I would note that that should be who, not which, and eligible to vote on a motion from voting on such motion provided, however, a unanimous vote of council members present and voting may prohibit an elected official from voting on such motion for cause.
So I think it's clear. I mean, where we can expand there is probably the cost of anybody causing a danger to the public, to elected officials or staff, or could cause a physical harm to the public or to the elected officials or to the staff presence at the meeting. So that would be the cost if presented danger to the public. So I think it's straightforward. I don't know what the comments are here, but I think it's more than clear to spell out the process of the meeting.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Gary. I wish it was clear. I've spoken to a number of you over the past few years about meetings and process and procedure. It's something that's important to me. My problem with this one and what's being presented here is it creates the opportunity for filibuster without any way of dealing with it. And so if we're going to change how we conduct meetings, I'd prefer that we look at all the processes and do that rather than create the opportunity for filibuster and for having someone frankly sit and read a dictionary with no ability for the chair to make a change and call for a vote. So for that reason, I can't support it tonight, but I'm very supportive of looking at the procedures for our meetings and making our meetings more effective and efficient, and also make sure that we have the ability to move, process, and pass legislation. So while this one doesn't get to me, there is something that will, and I would be able to support, but not this one at this moment.
Councilmember Palermo.
What this is doing is, the way I read it, is not even really changing anything. It's probably clarifying for future mayors and councils, you know, just similar to as was discussed with the strategic plan. There was a discussion of, given that we have term limits in all roles now, both city council and mayor, there is going to be long-term turnover, and it's helpful to have procedures in place. Is there, I think I heard Councilman Tizer is here, that he'd like to go through all different processes and procedures. I think that's something that I'm certainly open to discussing and hearing, and would love to discuss at a public meeting. That being said, I think this is pretty clear. It's something that is not, again, changing anything. It's something that I would think we'd all agree on, unless you don't feel this is the case, that after a let's see. So after a motion is clear, something along those lines, that just there's that opportunity for discussion from elected representatives. I think that's pretty straightforward. I would think all 7 of us would agree on that. And then again, obviously prohibition on voting, I'm confident all 7 of us agree on. So why not support this unless there is any reason to oppose this where you feel this should not be the way in the future things are done.
Councilor Zapata.
Thank you. So yeah, let me summarize. It's not that complicated. So first step is a motion. We all know that. Second step is second the motion. Here is specifying and clarifying for the process that the third step will be the opportunity to mayor and council to make a comment, to continue the discussion, or amend the motion. In case that during this discussion is decided to amend the motion, then this goes back to letter number A, which is, make a motion with the amendment. So, and then go to the second, and then again, any question, and then council vote. So that is a healthy practice that is very clear, very straightforward. And I have the opportunity and the honor to practice this when I have the chance to be the preceded meeting, and I gave everybody the opportunity to make a comment after the second. So I found that very, very, very useful and very, proper for the meeting. So, and then if someone wants to read a dictionary, well, this person will have to answer to the constituents and the voters. If the only thing that this person is doing, reading dictionaries during the mayor and council meeting, then this person will have to face this on his or her next election. So, I cannot do something, straightforward and clarify, because thinking that someone might pull a dictionary from under the table and start reading, hopefully this person doesn't get reelected. So, and the second point is like, the only way that someone can be removed, elected officials can be removed if they're causing danger of physical harm to other elected officials at the meeting, the public that is attending the meeting, staff who is also attending this meeting. So I think I don't see, at least from my perspective, that is too complicated and too hard to see the benefits, but that is my personal opinion.
Councilor Judy.
Since we're giving our personal opinions, I'll not give the sarcasm that was just given, but I will give my personal opinion that I think it's written too gray. I think it's horribly written. I think it's open for interpretation, in my opinion. I think we all have opinions. I cannot support it as it's written this way. If we would like to write it in a different way, then I might support it sometime. I think this is a reaction to some political things that went on, that some people feel a certain way and some people don't. And I think that the way it's written is it's not written well enough for me to support this evening. I think it's very gray, and it can be used politically in many different ways. And I think that's probably the reason it was written that way. So I cannot support this evening. I would be open to supporting putting the way meetings are run to a work session or committee to try to figure out, the mayor, our charter says the mayor runs the meetings, and I am good with that. I think that is why she's elected to, he or she is elected to that position. I think there are rules that can be set out. I know that there are some good things in Robert's rules. There's some bad things in Robert's rules. I think that we could come up with something that moves the meetings on better, but I think this is just a vague, gray written thing that is again a reaction to something and can be used as political gain or political weapon moving forward. So I cannot support this evening. I will support this conversation becoming more robust in the future.
Councilor Woolsey.
Yes, thank you. I agree that putting some process into the way discussions and the way are handled in meetings needs to take place, and there needs to be some mutual agreement and understanding on what that is. I think this ordinance basically jumps in right in the middle of the process, and where we need to jump back is to start back into how an item is presented, how we listen to the facts, we discuss it, then we present opinions, then a motion is made. I think that we really need to take a closer look at how all the items are presented and the complete process that we go through in coming to a motion, and then how we handle once a motion is made. Again, I agree there's some good things in Robert's Rules of Order. I think it's important that we have a presiding officer that is able to make some judgments and move the meeting along to make sure that we accomplish and do the work of the people as we're there for. Again, I would also support doing a deeper dive and further discussion in this, but I don't think it's ready to be moved forward at this time.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you. I appreciate all of your opinion and comments. And just to clarify, Councilmember Judy, if you can be more specific of which part are great and which part would you like to see to add, I'm willing to work and see what your points are. And actually, I can take note right now. And so that will be very helpful for a discussion to see which is the area that you mentioned and then which points need to be added. Thank you.
Councilmember Clermont.
So what I like about how it's written is at a minimum. So I think what I'm hearing is there's opportunity for more, and I don't disagree. I'm certainly open to that discussion. I like that it leaves a lot of flexibility, and because right now it's full gray area, a lot of flexibility. This is just the bare minimum to ensure that residents are being represented. So I'm just blown away if there wouldn't be support for something so basic as just really the simple foundation. That just obviously, once a motion is seconded, there should be the opportunity to discuss it. There's no formal motion until it's seconded. Obviously, I guess I shouldn't say obviously. Maybe based on Councilman Judy's comment, there might not be full agreement on this, but I would think most would agree that no singular elected official should prohibit the opportunity for other elected representatives to not represent residents with a vote. So that's where I think this is a great foundation. I think we move it forward tonight. And then anybody that has other ideas on what we should add, I think that's a great thing to bring forward. But again, just something that's so clear, so frankly minimalistic is just shows it's a good baby step in the right direction, and certainly love anybody else to take the initiative to bring additional recommendations forward, just as Councilman Zapata has tonight. So Councilman Zapata, thank you, and again, Councilman Judy, Councilman Tizer, and Councilmember Wilsey, who all sound like they said they support things like this and have great ideas. Please bring it forward just like Councilman Zapata did, so we can actually discuss and actually make some positive change for future councils.
Any further questions? Councilmember Hall.
I just have a comment and a question for Councilmember Zapata. So my comment is, this is just basically codifying what we already do, or what a meeting does. So I don't see that it's different, other than we get into the prohibition on voting. And did I understand that you're adding a definition for cause, if somebody's causing a danger to the language? So I guess my comment is, I don't know that this is different than what it is, other than, and maybe Councilmember Tizer could comment on the filibuster portion that he's concerned about.
Mayor Henry.
Councilmember Hall, I would like to respond to you. This is not codifying what is happening right now. I, as the presiding officer, set the rules for the meeting, and plain and simple. Now, Mr. Halsey, is that correct, incorrect?
That's the practice that Roswell has had, in my knowledge, since 1967, and it may go back to 1854.
So we're going back to 1854. And, you know, if you all choose to usurp my authority, that is well within your power as 6 members and a vote of the majority. I would highly suggest that if we're going to go down this road, we're going to talk about council restrictions, about using council meetings as a bully pulpit to campaign. We'll interject that. So if you want to rock the apple cart, I'll go right down that road with you. But I will not support this motion tonight, or if we have a motion, initiative.
Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you, Gary. Mr. Halsey, am I mistaken? Don't we have a resolution or a rule of decorum or something out there that codifies number 2?
Number 2.
Yeah, about an elected official. I think it's in our rules of decorum that's printed on the back of every agenda.
I'm not sure if it, it's one of those, I'm not sure that it actually contradicts that or it encompasses that, but
As I remember, it talks about basically somebody can be removed except you can't remove an elected official. I think it's already there.
That's true. You cannot remove an elected official. That's true.
So it already have it. So this is, to me, this is moot. It's already there.
Councilmember Palermo.
So I think, so I have seen that now that Councilman Tizer reminds me. I think it doesn't hurt to still have it clearly here as well. I think it's also important that we are just making sure we're giving, again, it's something where we need to think the future beyond any of us serving. How are we setting them up for success? And I think by showing just these minimal aspects that of course there should be the opportunity for discussion, I think we go ahead and move that forward. I think everyone spoke and everybody's kind of shared their positions. I don't think we should belabor it. I think, ideally, I think let's just have a vote, see where the dice falls and leave it there. But again, I just feel nothing's being lost here, and it's just making it clear to the public, to the council, and on just really that bare minimum, knowing it's just purely a minimum, and the mayor is certainly going to officiate and lead the meeting in the way that she or he would see fit, just knowing that this is just the bare minimum of the foundation.
Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you. So yeah, I would like to answer the question from Councilmember Hall. The intention of this legislation is to formalize and codify a good meeting practice. So you were asking if the intention is to codify or formalize. The answer is yes. So at no point was any intention to upset the mayor at all. So yeah, it's to codify and formalize something that I think is a good practice. And even though we do practice, doesn't hurt to have a formalized piece of legislation to, not for now, but for the future, to follow a good meeting practice.
Councilmember Judy.
So I think it's very big of us to tell future councils what they should be doing, and what is a good meeting practice. What is a good meeting practice for you might not be a good meeting practice for them or for me or others. And to your point about gray areas, I can see a lot of gray areas in this, and I don't really, Councilman Zapata, I appreciate the theatrics there, but I don't really want to build this at the dais this evening. This is a bigger conversation, and to that point, changing protocol that has been done in the city for years and years and years is just not something I take lightly. Do I think we should look at these and look at ways to make meetings more efficient? Yes. Do I think that putting this out here for political gain to say, hey, look, I stood up for people and I did this and I threw all this out there, and which will come shortly hereafter, should this come on, and should this get passed, I think is just, this is all political. This is already happening, as you said. So, what's the point here this evening? If we're going to have a larger conversation, I'm all for that. And let's have a transparent, larger conversation where we look at every end of this. But let's not go here tonight and then say, these people are against everybody voting. These people are against everybody getting their words. These people are against transparency, because that's what's going to come after this vote this evening. And that's so far from the truth, it's not even funny. But I will not support this evening. And I do encourage a further conversation that's more robust and takes every legal and other thoughts into consideration, because I don't think this is anywhere near where we need to be.
Councilor Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. I'm going to make a motion to lay this item on the table in anticipation of a more robust discussion.
There's a motion on the floor to table the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Judy. Any further questions or discussion? Councilmember Spot.
Yeah, I mean, seems like, let me see here. Seems like I brought forward this item, and so out of courtesy, if anybody bring a item, I will let everybody, but that is me again, out of courtesy, let people whoever bring item forwards to make a motion first. But this is out of courtesy, might not be written in any ordinance or anything or charter, but is out of respect, out of decency, and I will never do that. And I'm sorry to see this have been done to me here. So you can proceed with the vote.
I'd like to clarify, that's not how we handle it in committee. And I think Councilman Zapata has proven exactly the point of what I would like to get to the heart of in our future discussions on this matter. Thank you.
Sorry about that, I was muted. Mayor Henry, motion to table.
Yes.
Councilmember Hall, motion to table. Yea or nay?
Can you repeat the motion?
There was a motion to table the item.
Is there a date or?
There was a motion to table the item and seconded by Councilmember Judy, and we're just taking the roll. I'm just calling the roll. No date. She's just asking if there was a date. Oh, did you want to add a date to that, Councilmember Tyser? Want to keep it open-ended until the item is ready to come back?
It's until the item's ready to come back. What I said was in anticipation of a more robust discussion.
Any further clarifying questions? Councilmember Hall. Councilmember Judy.
Yay.
Councilmember Palermo.
Nay.
Councilmember Tyser.
Yay.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yay.
Councilmember Zapata.
Nay.
I'm sorry?
Nay.
Motion carries. Moving on to, we have to move on to the other agenda, Public Safety and Public Works Committee. So we need a couple of seconds while we switch up the system. And we'll take a quick recess and be back in about a minute. Thank you.
It's upstairs.
Are we out?
Zapata, Palermo are upstairs.
Ready, Janet? Okay, we're good. Okay, welcome back to the Public Safety and Public Works Committee for Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. The first item on this agenda is the approval of the minutes for the Public Safety and Public Works Committee meeting for December 15th, 2020. Is there a motion? Councilor G.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor G. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Polero. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your hands. And it is unanimous. Thank you. No items for public safety. Moving on to public works. Item number 2, consideration from the mayor and/or city administrator to award a contract to Chatfield Contract Incorporated, standby contractor for the 580 Saddle Creek Circle pipe lining project in the amount of $83,000. Mr. Spelson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me okay? Okay, this is a straightforward pipelining project. It is a little longer than usual at about 120 yards or so, 360 feet. It was discovered under our inspection program and moved quickly to the top of that list. It is being awarded to the lowest responsive bidder among our standby pipelining contractors. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. I wasn't planning on sharing my screen just to show you the location, but I'll be happy to if anyone has any questions.
Floor is open. Councilor G.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor G. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Wilsey. Any further questions or comments? All in favor, please raise your hands. It is unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, Dan. Y'all have a good night. We are adjourned.